Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to move on to Patty Griffin right now, which is, my God, like, talk about, like, a shift in a different direction. Like, it's a way big shift in the right direct, or in a different direction. I shouldn't say right direction because I like the album, but I'll get to the two tracks that I recommend at the end of the album. I think that I'm going to kind of pioneer that new way of doing things. So
Ooh.
I'm gonna plow ahead directly into the bio right here. So Patty Griffin.
Let me give you the numbers
is,
first, John. Let me throw that in there. Flaming Red
Yeah.
by Patty Griffin comes in at 1,955 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums. Number 197 in 1998. Number 11,953 of all time. It's Patty Griffin's second highest rated album behind 2002's 1,000 Kisses. Flaming Red did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Patty Griffin is ranked number 2,311 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
And my stupid brain keeps telling me, don't say Kathy Griffin or Peter Griffin, right? Like both of those things, for whatever reason, like sometimes slip into my head a little bit. But Patty, sounds like Kathy, but it's different than the P, like P. Anyway, Kathy, see right there, Patty Griffin, Patricia Jean Griffin, born March 16th, 1964, which makes her the age of 61. I loved how I looked at multiple resources, but I loved on Wikipedia how instead of saying hometown, it said origin. Like that was how it did it. But Old Town, Maine, which is like, boy, you can't really be a better origin place there than a place called Old Town in New England, right? That's like straight out of Central. It's almost like Dickensian, you know what I mean, in terms of like how they're doing it. But Old Town, Maine is apparently next to the Penobscot Native American Reservation, and this is where Patricia Jean, Patty, was born. She's the youngest of 7 kids, and kind of grew up in, I'm not going to say like a homesteader lifestyle, but, one of those big families where there's 7 kids running around. And I'm sure her parents loved her, and I see nothing to say that. But, there's a way you have to parent, right? When you have 7 kids in your house. And so, like, I think it always leans a little bit to like free range to some degree. And then when you're in a place called Old Town, Maine, I think that also lends itself to like exploring the natural world, so to speak, I would say. And in Patty's case, she eventually ends up buying a guitar for $50 at age 16. And she kind of just buys it as a hobby, kind of like any of us morons would, just like, oh, I'm going to learn how to play the bass, right? Like, or the guitar. And then we do it for a while and then we don't follow up on it. Well, she, I guess, initially just had it as like a hobby and then eventually began writing songs, learning how to play the guitar. And that leads to her becoming a professional musician. So like it all is an origin to, almost like the Chuck Berry thing, right? Like I found a guitar and then I played it and it played me, right? Kind of going along right there. And so that is kind of like the origin story of kind of where she started. Some other things, I've been going long on bio, so I'll try to weave the biographical information into Patty Griffin's bio as we speak, but I want to talk about the fact that she is covered by an insane amount of artists. Like she's been covered by artists ranging from Bette Midler to Kelly Clarkson, Emmylou Harris, the Dixie, or I guess they're now called the Chicks, right? Not the Dixie Chicks. Along the way, I've all covered her at different times. She's pretty much always been critically acclaimed from her first album. This is her second album, just so you know. A lot of like the interesting origin story of Patty Griffin actually occurs after her first couple albums, when she starts to get like a pretty significant following. In 2004, she's touring as part of like Almost a Review with like Emmylou Harris and former CTS artist Gillian Welch is in that tour as well. She actually ends up getting an album that debuts at number 34 on the Billboard 200, which is pretty high for the lane that she's occupying. And I think there's the other thing that was very interesting is her music has shown up in popular culture in places you wouldn't expect it to be, like to finish a famous episode of Grey's Anatomy. It's been covered on American Idol as well. Kelly Clarkson did it apparently like on American Idol and gave it like a second life. When I say it's Up to the Mountain. Apparently this performance also features Jeff Beck playing the guitar on it. So Go figure. But I mentioned some people who covered her, but to continue on artists who've covered her, some names you would note: Joan Osborne, Miranda Lambert, Martina McBride, Linda Ronstadt, like Jessica Simpson, Mary Chapin Carpenter. These are all people, along with the ones I mentioned before, who have covered her music. She still is continuing to put out albums to this day. She was a backing vocalist in July 2010 for Robert Plant when he was doing a solo tour.
Is that when he was doing the Alison Krauss stuff? Like, because Robert Plant definitely caught in this lane doing the Alison Krauss.
It was also with that, but it was actually when he was doing Band of Joy, which I guess is Led Zeppelin's original name. Did you know that? Apparently,
no.
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Yeah, or either it's their original name or it's like Robert Plant's first band. I don't know which one it is, but that's the tie-in. He was doing this thing, Band of Joy, which he put a band together, and she was a part of it. But after 2014, she finally parted ways with him. She actually just released her 11th studio album, Crown of Roses, on July 25th of this year.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, I guess I did not know. Just like I did artists that covered her, amongst the shows that have featured her music include, ready for this, Josh? This is going to be fantastic, okay? Crossing Jordan, Without a Trace, NCIS, the movies Elizabethtown and Cremaster 2, Digging to China. It was in One Tree Hill, the TV show there, a movie called Loggerheads, the show Bones, the show Smallville, and that's just the 2000s. Oh, 2010, yeah. She keeps going. So like her stuff shows up all over the place and gets covered all over the place. There's some other things, like I said, a lot of them happen in the 2000s more so than right now, that I'll build in biographically when you guys bring up something, but avoid going too long. And because we're going to be covering her again, I'll tap out there. Let's go, Matt. Let's give you the first take, since this is a little bit of Mattcore.
It is, and I've known Patty Griffin for many years, I think, and this album was probably the first album that I remember hearing her music from, and I own this record. I think my sister-in-law, if I'm not mistaken, maybe got my brother into her, and then through that I became familiar. So yeah, so I know this album pretty well, and I enjoy it. Patty Griffin, a lot of her stuff, she's kind of like a folk artist. I think that's kind of, in some ways is kind of what she's more known for. And this album,
her first album was a folk album. This she considers to be her rock album.
Yeah, and it's very clear, right? It's not just rock; it's very pop. It's full band, right? Like that first album, Living with Ghosts, and a lot of her other stuff is kind of more. It's more acoustic. It's more. She's a very much, it can be like a coffee shop kind of artist. But this album, she clearly is showing, hey, I can rock out too, and she certainly does that, right? There's a lot. It just. Right off the beginning, Flaming Red, the opening track, is kind of like a punk song, right? Like just like how fast it's going, and it's kind of like it's got a grimy, kind of nature to it, and it sounds very different than her debut album. So I can imagine like people that were really into Patty Griffin back in the late 90s getting this record and going, "What the hell is this?" Right? Like I didn't mean to sign up for this. So maybe she lost some fans, but I think this is a very solid album. I think she does a really good job of mixing up sounds. There's, like I said, there's stuff that's really pop. I mean, a song like Tony or a song like Carry Me is very much, like musically at least, it's kind of got this like late 90s female pop, like Michelle Branch, kind of, vibe to it that I think is certainly very appealing. I was kind of listening to some of it going, man, I like it kind of, it's definitely of this time, and there's a part of me that wonders if it's not, it maybe in lesser hands it would be kind of considered a little generic, but I think musically, I think she's just a really good songwriter, and I think that her voice is fantastic. I actually saw her live many years ago, and I remember being struck by two things. One, she's short. She's like 5 feet tall, like maybe even it's like very short. And then you just see this little thing up on the stage, and she is just belting out this voice and she very much like, has it on display here, particularly something like at the very end of Wiggly Fingers, where she's just like, like just going, she's like diva-esque, right? Like kind of with her vocals. So she's got pipes, and she certainly uses them here. Yeah, I like the variety. I like her branching out. I think she does really good job at throwing some rock songs down. There's definitely a Sheryl Crow vibe to a number of songs on this record, I would say as well. I think my only complaint is that she kind of takes a lot of the slower songs, like the quieter, more pensive songs, and she kind of stacks them all at the end. And so I probably would have liked to have her mix those, from Big Daddy all the way to Peter Pan. Maybe play two of those and put like a rocking, more upbeat song in between them. Because I think it does lose a little bit of steam after Blue Sky. And I think that this could have been mixed a little bit better. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm sure that there was like a certain progression or vibe that she was going for overall with this record. But that was, listening to it this time for the first time in a while, that was kind of like, oh yeah, it dies out. Because I think really the first 6 songs in particular are just like, honestly, they're just great, and the songs, and I picked up on some lyrics. I knew the lyrics of Tony are kind of like, it's a tragic song about, someone dealing with, being lonely and also being gay and, trying to deal with that and ended up killing themselves a little bit, very sad song, but also done with a very catchy melody, really kind of like a upbeat, song there as well. But just really pretty. Goodbye is a beautiful song. Just a really nice ballad that's about losing somebody. Carry Me is a super catchy song. Wiggly Figures is this really interesting blues rock, kind of vibe. So she's showing a lot of talent, and across a variety of different types of musical genres, and so I am a big Patty Griffin fan. I'm familiar with a couple of her albums, certainly not all of them, but I do recommend a lot of her stuff. And it doesn't surprise me that all those artists have covered her or speak highly of her. She's always struck me as kind of an artist's artist, like just a really good songwriter. And even if she never really got a ton of critical acclaim, or not critical acclaim, but a popular, acclaim over the years. I think I'm just seeing here, looking at the Wikipedia, this album sold 122,000 copies in the U.S. up to May of 2004. So she didn't sell a ton of records, but she certainly influenced a lot of people, and I think she's great. So I've always liked this album, and it was nice visiting it again this week. Thumbs up from me.
Yeah, I did not know this artist, and I really like this album. I'm going to be the opposite, Matt. If she's known as a folk artist and all of her albums are folk, I might be disappointed that she's changed. Because
I wouldn't say that. I would say she may be more known for that, but she also she branches out and does other things. Even when she has more folk songs and more folk, album, it's not all of that, right? Like I think that she also branches out in other ways too. So
yeah, I mean, this album made a really strong impression on me. I really like the rock that she brings to this. It's kind of refreshing to hear something so like straight ahead rock. I feel like we haven't had something like that in a while, and I agree with you. Her voice is like a really strong component of what's positive about this album. I really like the energy of this album, and kind of, she, like you said, she combines songs, or you said something to that effect, but like, yeah, she's dabbling in like different like genres of rock too on this album, which I really like. There's like a blues underpinning, but she kind of branches out, and I think she writes really strong hooks. And I agree with you, like at least through like Wiggly Fingers, which is the 8th track, like all of those songs are like phenomenal, like one after the other. I just found myself like really grooving to them and like tapping my toes and like singing along to in the choruses and stuff. She has really good, strong construction. This album is produced really well. It sounds really good. I feel like you can pick out there's like a lushness to her music with the full band, and I feel like you just kind of get this rich sound, and it feels like just powerful as a result in a really good way. And so what else did I have? Yeah, I thought her lyric writing ability was also pretty was solid. Tony is kind of, it always strikes me as like writing a catchy song about such like a sad topic is like really like this weird like cognitive dissonance that I have. Like I'm singing along about like a guy who kills himself. It's like it's just weird. And I also wrote down that she reminded me of Sheryl Crow, but this is kind of like more rock than Sheryl Crow is. Sheryl Crow's kind of like more country at times, at least the album that we talked about. But yeah, she's able to like seemingly do it all on this album, and like you said, on other albums she can do other genres as well. I found myself like right from the beginning just kind of surprised at how hard the rock goes at sometimes. Like Flaming Red and then Wiggly Fingers are like just like really like good hard rock, blues rock songs that I really responded to. So this is my album of the week. This was the one I like most enjoyed listening to besides the Aaliyah single. It was just like solid from start to finish and no complaints. So thumbs up for me.
Well, I'll take your complaint then, Josh, because this is such an interesting dichotomy for me, almost more so than any album we've covered in the 90s. Wow. On one hand, I think these are really good songs. Really good songs. I like the lyrics. I like her voice. I like the construction of the songs. And that's why this is a mild thumbs up for me, because I can tell that Patty Griffin's an excellent songwriter without having any context with her, right? Like, I love the versatility of what she sings about. I like the angle she takes. I think she's wordy without being too wordy, right? And paints a picture. All great things. I hate the production of this album. The production of this album fails her so much because and I think, Matt, when you were talking about what was the hang up for you a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised if it makes the song sound generic, like the production. And these songs have heart. These songs have feeling in them. But when you listen to it, it gets like this weird, very late 90s nothingness production to it that makes it sound like just another throwaway song and really sucked out the feeling of it. And the first time I heard this album, I was just like, this is fine. You know, it's kind of like a boiled down Sheryl Crow. It's kind of like Sheryl Crow without star power. And my take was, it's certainly not as good as some of the other people in this lane. You know, we've talked about like Gillian Welch or someone like Amy Mann or something like that. I like those songs more. And then the second time I listened to it, I said, these are really good songs. And I realized, like, why am I not connecting? And then I start realizing, oh, the production of this album is a nightmare. It's like I guess on one hand, it probably extended her appeal because it's that late 90s, super clean, edgeless promotion, right? That really just, it's almost like mainstream country production where there's just no soul and no feeling to me. And I felt like, man, like this album, the quality of songs is right up there with like a Lucinda Williams or a Gillian Welch, but because they sucked away all the feeling in the production, it just sort of seems like boiled over. It pushes it more into the lane, similar to that like Paula Cole album, where we're like, there's a lot we liked about it, but then it was like, but the songs didn't feel as emotive because it's that production that could also make it the theme of like Dawson's Creek, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this stuff deserved better than a production that as much allows it to be placed in without a trace as what it is. And that was really my takeaway, that it's just a slight thumbs up because there's so much promise to this. And this would be the type of album I'd love to see if they did like a stripped down or like a naked version of this and just took away the stuff. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I felt this would have been served better with like a folk or a stripped down production by quite a bit than the production it had. I really think, almost more so than any album we've covered in the 90s, that she was not served well, at least for my ears. Maybe she was in terms of what she was going for, or, you know, others' ears. But for my ears, it moved an album that I think on the right day could have been a high 7 and an 8 to more like a between 5 and 6 for me. And it's a real shame because I do want to hear more of her music. But I think, Matt, I'll use you as sort of my Sherpa to it, to the stuff that might lean more in the folk realm of things, because I'd be curious to see what she sounds like more unvarnished. So a really complicated take for me this week. One I wish was different.
And I don't necessarily disagree, because that's what I was kind of like, I was hearing that late 90s production, like, yeah, like this part of this sounds like I said, Michelle Branch kind of a thing. But that doesn't bother me as much. I mean, that production style. Right. And I think that because there's some more variety on this, and also knowing what she does, like, yes, John, I think you would like other albums like Living with Ghosts. Her debut album is very folky. I think you would like that. An album that I really like is Children Running Through from 2007. That was an album I listened to a lot of. You guys might recognize some of that, because I got that in grad school and I listened to that a good amount at that time. So there's great songs there. So this is a little bit, at least in my knowledge of Patty Griffin, this is a little bit of a detour in terms of that production style. This is I never really heard her go back to something like this, where she has a song that sounds production wise like a Tony or like a Carry Me or One Big Love or whatever. So I think you might find more enjoyment out of her some of that other stuff, John, because I think this was kind of like I could be wrong. She's got plenty of albums, and I don't know all of them. I only know some of them, but this is a little bit more of a detour, I would say.
Yeah, and the bio backs that up, Matt. That this is sort of like her. I'm not going to say her reach for the mainstream, because she does other stuff that falls in the mainstream. Like I said, she had an album that came in, in the top 50, right, of Billboard. But this is sort of her meeting the moment, I think, because there's a lot of rock that is in this lane. And I'm not going to say that she herself wanted to jump on that bandwagon. I don't think that's what it was, but it was sort of like, oh, let me show my take of this type of sound. And it's a way of doing women in rock, right? And I think that's kind of what she was going for, right? Like a women in rock type sound. Unfortunately, I think if it was 1991, it might have sounded different. I shouldn't say that, because there was also that lane of production in the early 90s, but it was like the hair metal, what was that guy who did all the Aerosmith albums in the 80s and early 90s in the hair metal? I can't ever remember. Mutt Lange, but but the other guy too. There's another guy. I want to say something Child or something. I can't remember, but yeah.
Well, the guy who produced this is a guy by the name of Jay Joyce, and this is the first album that he produced.
Okay.
And if you look at a lot of his credits, he's done a ton of like Eric Church.
Yes,
Miranda
that's what this
Lambert,
sounds like. Yes, this sounds like that type of country music, like
Zac
edgeless.
Brown Band, Carrie Underwood. So that's kind of what he's going for.
That's what this sounds like. Chicken
Urban.
Fried, and Keith Urban is the production. Yeah. And I just felt like this album deserved better than that, because I find that to be a lazy production style. Candidly, that's a sound that sounds lazy to me. Yeah,
I totally hear what you're saying. It doesn't bother me as much as it does you, but
Desmond Child, that's the guy's name. I just remembered.
Oh, got it. Yeah. But I get what you're saying. But I think I would. This is not indicative of her overall sound. This is just kind of, and this is it's her trying something different probably. But I still like it. I got a little bit of soft spot for some of that lush production, catchy, rock moments. But
it's a testament to how good a songwriter she is that I still put it in the not thumbs down, because she kind of transcended the quality of the songs, transcended like this production style, which is just miserable to me, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
What are the two songs that you recommend?
Oh, I had picked Carry Me and Christina as the two that I would pick. Are there any others that you guys would like to direct folks to that really stand out to you?
I've always liked Tony and Goodbye as well.
Okay. I like Wiggly Fingers a lot.
So it is a 13-track album. You've got 5 to go run after right there. And actually, 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all covered in our run right there, along with number 3. So that high middle to low middle, right? That fat part of the album, 3 to 8, is the sweet spot for you if you're looking to just sample. Which, as I'm told by pretty much everybody I know under 30, like, I'm not going to listen to a whole album, John. So just give me 3 or 4, and I'll see if I like it, and then I'll check out the full album, right? Which I get. You know, it's kind of like
and that's not even because we're talking about albums in the 90s that like notoriously went over 70 minutes on the regular. This is just because like this would be the same case even if the album was like 35 minutes probably for some of those people. So
I just think it's like people are like, I want to check out a couple songs to see if it's worth my time the rest of the way, which actually isn't all that different of how people consume stuff on mixtapes back in the day too, if we're being honest, or the radio, right? It's just a different way of doing it. So so if you're a listener like that, 3 through 8 if you want to give like a 5-song couplet, and you've got some good